Yeah, I think Raffy could have had a better start to 2025. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Sea Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. If you watch the first two games of the regular season for the Sox so far, there's probably one thing that really stands out above the rest, and that is the fact that the Red Sox offense as a whole right now is off to a pretty slow start. In fact, without Wilyer Abreu, the Boston Red Sox have scored just one run in 2 games, and obviously the face of the Red Sox offense is always Rafael Devers, and Rafael Devers himself is off to a pretty bad start to 2025. In his first 8 plate appearances of the season, Rafael Devers has struck out 7 different times. He also has 14 different whiffs on the season. Basically, what I'm saying here is for the first 2 games of the year, Rafael Devers looks absolutely lost. And of course, with this being the first 2 games of the season, I've seen a whole lot of conspiracy theories out there as to what may be causing this, and we're going to talk about what may be causing this for sure, but I also wanted to put this in perspective a little bit before we jump down Rafael Devers' throat. Right off the bat, I want to say that I want to put this into perspective over the course of an entire season. What we're currently judging Rafael Devers on is an incredibly minuscule percent of what he's actually most likely going to provide for the Red Sox this season. So let's talk about this. Rafael Devers was moved to DH for one big reason, right? And that big reason was because of his defense. But another kind of underlying reason why the Red Sox may have made this move is because over the last couple of years, playing third base has taken a toll on Rafael Devers' health. He's been injured a couple of times because of his defensive plays. This has prevented him from playing a full season. One of the goals of his forceful move to DH was to hopefully get him into more games and have him be more impactful at the plate over the course of a 162-game season. So let's talk about what this actually looks like. Alex Cora has built-in off days for guys. It's just what Alex Cora has done basically his entire time as manager. So Rafael Devers probably isn't going to play 162 games this year, but again, with the DH, the hope is that he stays healthy. So let's say he plays 156 games with those built-in off days. That would mean that what we're judging Rafael Devers on right now is 1.28% of his current season. Let's take that into the real world a bit. This is essentially the equivalent of judging a movie or a TV show off of watching 1.28% of it, right? And I know some people out there certainly do that, but a lot of us out there give at least a couple more minutes in a movie, right? We sit here and we say, the first 20 minutes wasn't great, but hey, maybe this pays off in the next 30 minutes, and all of a sudden we're hooked and it becomes one of our favorite movies of all time, right? That's sort of what I'm saying here, but let's break this down even further, because we can do this even further. Rafael Devers has played 156 games twice in his career so far. For those of you who care what years they were, it was 2019 and 2021, 2 of Rafael Devers' best seasons in Major League Baseball. During those seasons, he averaged 683 plate appearances. So far, like I said, Rafael Devers has 8 plate appearances this year. They've been woeful, for sure, but it's also been 1.17% of what Raffy could see at the dish this season. My point in this is to show everyone that I think we just need to breathe a little bit. The beauty of being a diehard baseball fan is that we get 162 games that feel like life or death. Every single one of these games feels like a must-win if you are a diehard fan of the Boston Red Sox, but that's also a double-edged sword, because over the course of 162, 2 games of a player's appearance, although the first 2 games of the year, and the only thing we have to base them off of, is incredibly small sample size. It's the equivalent of saying that a Trace Thompson deserved to start over a Wilyer Abreu, Jaron Ran, or Ceddanne Rafaela because of 2 weeks in spring training, right? Everyone was talking about that as well, and right now, I don't think anyone's really missing Trace Thompson's bat in this lineup. If you're making a judgment on Rafael Devers right now, I'm going to be totally honest with you, you're doing the wrong thing. Right? You're just simply doing the wrong thing. Let's break this down again based on the normal world, right? Not the baseball world, just the normal world. Let's say we're judging someone on their 9-to-5 job during a week, just one singular week, a 40-hour work week, 9 to 5. What we'd be basing this off of, what you'd be sitting there if you're saying, wow, dude, Rafael Devers had those bad 2 games. Clearly something's wrong with him. He's going to be terrible this season. They need to trade him right away. He doesn't care. He's not trying. Whatever it is that you are saying currently, let's bring that into a normal 9 to 5, an accountant, whoever you want to say, right? In those 40 hours, what you are judging Rafael Devers on is the first 40 minutes of Monday. That's it, right? Get to work 9 to 9:40. That's what you're judged on through this whole week. And that sounds a little bit ridiculous when you break it into legitimate real-world experiences, doesn't it? The first 40 minutes of someone's work week absolutely has very little impact on what they do for the rest of the week, right? It drives me crazy that we're judging Rafael Devers on the first couple of days of the season. Not even the first couple of days. 1.17% of the potential plate appearances he is going to have this season. That's what we're judging Rafael Devers on. We're not waiting for it to get to 20, 30%, because then it's a bigger conversation, right? Rafael Devers struggles for 15% of the season, 20% of the season. Now we're sitting here and we're saying, well, now this is a really, really big problem. 1.17% of the season, I just simply can't get myself to worry about it. But that doesn't mean it's not an issue. So let's talk about what could be going on and how Rafael Devers fixes this. Look, at the end of the day, I'm just a lowly YouTuber. Like many of you, my baseball playing days ended when high school graduation came around. Probably a little bit before that for a lot of us as well. I don't really know, to be honest with you, what the reason for Rafael Devers' struggles truly are, but we can make some educated guesses based on some of the context clues we got in spring training. I think the first one is something that we talked about a whole lot coming into the regular season. We talked about it actually multiple times on this channel, and that is the transition over to DH. Yes, just hitting feels like you were doing half of the work that you were doing before, and it's because you are, right? You essentially are doing half the work that you were doing before, but it doesn't mean moving over to DH doesn't have its own challenges. Every single at-bat becomes much more heightened, it becomes much more important, and it becomes much more pressure-packed. That's going to take some adjustments. Last year, Rafael Devers could have struck out 3 times in a game, but it immediately meant nothing if he made a good play at third base, or at least in his head, it didn't mean anything, right? Because he's still impacting the game. Now, Rafael Devers strikes out 3 times in a game, or even once in a game, and he has, 2 or 3 innings to just sit there and stew over it, and only 4 opportunities throughout the entire game to make any sort of impact. When in reality, before that, it was 10, 12, depending on how many ground balls or outs he was able to generate at third base. There's a big difference between a mindset where you are a third baseman and a mindset where you are DH. And there's a real possibility here that it's going to take some time for Rafael Devers to adjust to that mentality, to adjust to the idea of only being able to impact a game 4, maybe 5 times a game, and maybe 12, 13 times a series. That's a big, big adjustment Rafael Devers has to make. And there is a legitimate possibility that right now Rafael Devers is having a bit of a difficult time in his first couple of games truly making that adjustment, that he's in his head a little bit, right? That he's mentally having a hard time adjusting to this DH position. I absolutely think that could be something that's affecting him. We talked about it this spring training. On top of it, he's probably not super pumped behind the scenes that he is a DH, right? There's probably still some feelings going on there as to where he ended up in terms of his position on this team going forward. We know Rafael Devers wasn't happy with the idea of being a DH. He changed his mindset because of conversations with Alex Cora, but that doesn't mean he's truly happy with it. Mentally, there could be still some lingering effect of this transition holding on to Rafael Devers and preventing him from being the player that we know and love. And I think that's a big part of it. The other is just mechanically. What we're seeing from Rafael Devers at the plate right now isn't a player who's totally lost. I know a lot of people are going to say that because they're just looking at the strikeout numbers, but if you actually watch every single at-bat, it's not that Rafael Devers is swinging at pitches he shouldn't be swinging at. Every once in a while, sure, he's going to get fooled, but for the most part, he's working counts, he's getting deep into counts, he's seeing 4 or 5 pitches and at-bat, he's just simply missing the pitches he should be swinging at, right? He's swinging at them, he's just not making the contact we normally see from Rafael Devers, and a big part of that could be what we've been talking about this entire spring training, because Rafael Devers didn't miss spring training games this season because he was injured. Rafael Devers missed spring training games this season because he was working on the backfields to make an adjustment with his bat path. We talked about this, right? I'm not going to totally dive into it, but just sort of the overlying numbers here tell us that last season, Rafael Devers changed his bat path because of his injury. This offseason, he spent most of it rehabbing that injury and came into spring training having to make that adjustment back to what his normal bat path looked like. And that was a big reason. It was the reason why he was not in games for the Red Sox this spring. I wouldn't be surprised, and I don't think anyone should be surprised to realize that, hey, maybe he didn't figure it out 100%. Maybe there's still adjustments to be made. Now, the good news here is that Rafael Devers is one of the best adjustment makers in the sport. There's a reason why he is constantly, when healthy, a top 25 hitter in Major League Baseball, and it's because of his ability to make those adjustments at the plate. Rafael Devers himself isn't really worried about what's going on the field right now. He had an interview post-game, and he genuinely looked completely unfazed by what was going on at the plate. He understands that the process is going well. He just needs to really get into a groove here. And some people may point to the idea that he wasn't in spring training games. I don't know that it has too much impact on this. We talked about the difference between I'm going to face Garrett Crochet 10 times versus I'm going to face, the Tigers AAA fifth starter twice, and then I'm going to face one major leaguer, right? I don't think that getting into spring training games would have solved this. He still would have needed to make those adjustments, and I think that's exactly what he's still trying to do. I think those adjustments are still a work in progress, and again, 1.17% of the season, it's okay for him to make those adjustments, right? It's okay for him to come out of the gate slow as long as this 1.17% doesn't turn into 5, 10, 15, 20% of the season, because then that's a much bigger issue. Look, my point in this video is not to make excuses or try to tell you that what Rafael Devers is doing at the plate isn't horrible, because statistically it is, right? There's just no getting around it. It is a horrible start to 2025. My point in this video is that as fans, what we tend to do is not even jump, but leap to conclusions, right? 1-2 bad games, and all of a sudden we're sitting here and I'm seeing stuff like Rafael Devers is doing this on purpose. Rafael Devers doesn't care. Rafael Devers is going to be miserable this entire year. He's trying to play for a trade. He's just simply not the player he used to be. We're seeing all those conversations pop up after 2 singular games. My point was to hopefully, for you guys who are sitting there saying that, put this into a bit of a perspective, to allow everyone to breathe a little bit, to sit there and say that a 2-game sample size is way, 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 way too small compared to the rest of a regular season to make any sort of conclusions as to who Rafael Devers is. And again, you go back to the idea of making adjustments, not just making adjustments at the plate, but making adjustments to a whole new position, a whole new part of this Red Sox organization. And that is something that I think needs to be talked about with these struggles with Rafael Devers. Look, Rafael Devers stumbled out of the gate. We know this, right? The gun went off and Rafael Devers fell on his face. It's clear as day. But it's also so far away from the end of this race, we can't even see the finish line yet. The finish line isn't even on the horizon. That's how far away from a full, complete picture we have. I'm not worried about Rafael Devers, and I don't think you should be either. And if you're still not sure whether or not you should be worried about him, Rafael Devers himself had this to say after the game as to whether or not people should be worried about his appearances.
It's only been 2 games. I feel comfortable in the play. I feel good.
So let me know in the comment section down below, what do you guys think? What do you think about all this? Am I right? If you are worried about Rafael Devers, did I help you ease those worries a little bit? Are you still worried about Rafael Devers? Is there something I'm missing here that you're saying, Corbin, how can you not talk about this? This is what's causing Rafael Devers, and it's not going away anytime soon. Let me know all your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton, and it's the best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Don't forget, if you guys want to listen instead of watch these episodes, all you got to do is head over to your favorite podcasting app and look up Red Seat Radio. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.